Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Eric McGrew. I am here today to talk to you about the Makita BL motor, 60 decibel. This one is the XBU03. This is a handheld 18 volt brushless and cordless battery operated blower. So this device here is pretty lightweight. But more importantly than some of that, I'm going to talk about the ergonomics of it, how well it works, and what I know about it from my uses of it. So this is not the only blower that I own. I own a tree service company. It's not uncommon that we use blowers in our industry, even though this video is primarily and specifically and purposely more focused on the homeowner. So keep that in mind. I won't really be talking about this in the aspect of tree specific work, just in general, so that you guys can have an idea of what this blower is and what you might think of it, what you might want from it, what you might be able to expect from it, and that kind of stuff. So this blower right here is pretty lightweight. It's easy to pick up with one finger. I have a 5 amp hour battery on it. I found that all the different amp hours work on it. It doesn't run out really quickly. It's actually pretty well balanced power to battery life. So whether I'm using a 2 amp hour, 3 amp hour, 4 amp hour, 5 amp hour, 6 amp hour, doesn't seem to make much of a difference in the longevity of it, other than the fact that, of course, you're going to get less time out of it with a 2 amp hour than a 5 or a 6. But it's not like, I don't feel like the runtime is skewed by using a smaller amp hour battery, like it runs out significantly quicker. It's proportional to the amount of amp hours that you have, if that makes sense. So it's incremented is all it is. I've been very happy with this. My first one was purchased for my skid steer. We blow off the cooler vents and everything on the back. That's how I came across this thing. I predominantly use Makita battery equipment or tools, just because I already have a bunch of the 18 volt. I bought a kit and then I had it. Is it the best out there on the market? I can't say that it is. I've used the DeWalt and I've used the Milwaukee, and they seem to be pretty good as well. This one does seem to be slightly lighter than the ones that I used. So if you're dealing with like elbow pain or wrist issues or anything like that, this is pretty easy to maneuver. With the battery on the back, it does tend to balance it much better. It's pretty balanced in the handle. They did a good job. Once again, it'll be slightly less balanced if you use like a 2 amp hour, because it's just a smaller battery. It's slightly more balanced in the central area from just behind the trigger with like the 4 or 5. If you use a 6, it does tend to want to tilt up a little bit more. Not terribly though, because 6 and 5 are not that different, and it's easy to maneuver with one hand. There is a clip that comes with this for a shoulder harness. I thought it was more cumbersome than helpful, just due to my personal strength. However, if you have weaker arms or whatnot, you might want that strap to use it. So keep up with it and use it. You'll notice that I only use the first barrel size because I have to use it overhead a lot for what I do with this a lot. So I just don't use the second barrel. It's not uncommon. I usually take the extension barrel off of all of my blowers. I found that they work more efficiently and they travel better for what I use them for. Once again, predominantly my equipment is used for my tree service company and secondary for my home. So yeah, I tend to have things slightly different than what some people would. A lot of people would want the second barrel on there to get closer to the ground. However, I'm 6'2½", as my wife likes to say. And it's does a pretty good job without the second barrel. I find that the second barrel tends to actually kind of get in the way for me, and I can keep my arm fully extended down. I don't have to hold it like this to do it, which makes it less comfortable. It works really well. As you can see, I do woodworking as part of my business as well, and this is great for blowing off chips. And just keeping my area clean. Now, with every product, there are some pros and cons. So let's talk about some of the features of this blower, and let's talk about some of the cons to it. The handle is a nice rubbery grip, so it doesn't bother your hands, at least mine, holding it. But it's rubbery enough to keep it solid. You're not like holding a hard plastic grip that makes it uncomfortable or wants to move around in your hands quite a bit. You have rubber here on the top, you have rubber here on the bottom. The trigger is that traditional plastic, you know, hard plastic. It is what it is, it's molded, and it is what it is, like I said. The body is, this is something that Makita does a lot, and good or bad, it's really preference, but it's that textured plastic, and it tends to catch dirt real bad, and you have to clean it with a rag. I usually use a wet, what are those things called? Microfiber seems to do the best on it, because it doesn't just smear the dirt on it, it actually takes it off, whereas like wet paper towels or wet just cotton rags tend to just push the dirt around. That being said, because it is a electric blower, the static of the motor and the air passing through the funnel and the tube tend to create static that attracts dirt and it clings to it. So when you start to use this, especially like if I'm doing carving, which I do out here with power carvers, there's a lot of dust that builds up, that really fine dust. And if I'm having, we live in Western Colorado, so we have a very high desert silty clay sand as our dirt. And if you're mowing and then you go to blow off, there's a bunch of fine dust that comes up and it wants to stick real bad to this. So you have to clean it with, like I said, I found the microfiber to be best in cleaning it. So those are some of the pros and cons. Another pro it has is that you have this trigger, so you can lock it and not have to touch it with any of your fingers. Couple of things about it. One, you can actually just, you don't have to pull the trigger to get it started. You can just push it forward. So even holding it with my thumb, which is actually a pro to this. A lot of them you have to pull the trigger, and then while your fingers pulled, try to push it forward. That can be challenging at times and make it less than comfortable. What I will say though, that is kind of a con to me, it's not the biggest thing out there, but when it is engaged, you have to disengage it with your thumb, like pulling it backwards. Because if you don't, just pulling the trigger won't disengage it. And I know it's a nitpicky thing, but I like it when I can like have the trigger release where you pull the trigger and it disengages. Most of my tools are that way. So it's kind of like the first initial thing that I go to do, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I've got to pull that back. So once again, not the worst design ever, just a nitpicky thing about it for me. It is very, very light, so when you do start to use it, you have to really kind of push forward a little bit on it because it wants to push backwards on you. So if you are a smaller person, I will probably do a review of this with my wife for her perspective of it, and we'll talk about it at that point. But I feel like as a smaller person, you would fight a little bit more with arm strength to push this, keep it in front of you and blow with it. But I think that any handheld blower is going to be that way. That all being said, in comparison to some of the more budget friendly like Echo blowers you might get from like one of your home good stores like Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever, this one probably has the least amount of pushback on it. Once again, I don't remember exactly what kind of airspeed rating there is on this, but I'll put that up in the description or on the screen for you guys so that you know. Another thing to know about it is, as is typical with the Makita plastic that's textured in this blue color, it scratches and gets dirty real easy. So if you prefer tools that just kind of look more pristine and polished after you've cleaned them, probably not your tool. Even the barrel is like this, I don't know, like, I wouldn't say a soft plastic. It's not really that soft. It is slightly soft. Not softer than others that I've seen out on the market, but it is just a little bit more scratch and dirty, scuff prone than some of the others. It's not that slick plastic at all. It's very matte, and typically when you have matte plastics, they tend to scuff and stay dirty and scratch up a little easier than some of that slicker stuff. But they tend not to break as easily. So if you were to drop this, there's a good chance that it wouldn't break as easily as some of that really hard, smooth plastic that's on the cheaper ones or whatever. This is considered, as a general rule, to be a little bit better quality plastic molding. It's just, it doesn't look as pristine when you use it regularly. So keep that in mind. Other than that, I can't really say much more about it. It does have a back hand guard here that's rubber as well to protect your pinky if it slips back on your hands, or if you have a really big hand. I have pretty large hands and my fingers fit just fine on this without touching, but I could see somebody with larger hands having a little bit of an issue. This here keeps it very stable on the bottom, so you can set it down. It's very stable, it's unintrusive. It's not very big, as you can tell. It's probably only like 5 or 6 inches in diameter at its widest diameter. And it's very, very comfortable to use. So far, of all the smaller blowers that I've used, gas and battery, this has been my favorite overall, just for comfort and power and everything like that. Once again, I don't like to say anything's the best product out there. They all have their pros and cons, but I can use this easily to blow off our sidewalks and stuff around the house, or like I said, lift it over my head to clear off my skid steer and it not cause me any problems. I also use it sometimes if my truck gets extra dusty when I'm out in a area that's like really wooded or whatever, and there's a lot of soft silt dirt. I can blow it off with this and keep it out of like the air box and stuff in my truck. So very, very handy, much easier to use than a backpack blower where you're trying to move a cumbersome tube, you know, up and around. So hope you guys enjoy this. Hope you find it interesting and beneficial. If you like this video, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and if you can, subscribe. It really helps the channel out. I really appreciate all your help, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Thanks.